This is the Book Legion Podcast, where we review thought-provoking books to give our Legionnaires the knowledge they need to dominate the next level of their life.
Thanks for joining me on the Book Legion this week. My name is Tyzer Evans. I'm going to be reviewing this week The Third Door by Alex Banayan. So first I want to start with who Alex Banayan is. So Alex grew up in Southern California, actually right in Beverly Hills. His parents were pretty well-to-do. I think that they were trying to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak, and Alex talks a little bit about that in the book. But he ended up going to USC, and this is where he got this idea of, like, how did the people, the world's most successful people, how did they get their start, and what were they doing at my age? So he set out on this quest to go talk to the world's most successful people. Now, Alex was 19. He had never written a book. He didn't have any connections, and he didn't have any money to do this project. But he was determined to see this thing through. He wanted to, one, find out for himself, feeling like a lost 18, 19-year-old, as we all are in college. And two, he wanted to be able to help more people and be able to shed more light on people and say, hey, this is what the most successful people in the world did when they were our age, and here's how they got their start. But not just about like, oh, they went to this college and they started, Oracle or Apple in the garage, or, Bill Gates starting Microsoft in the garage. Like, no, what was the thought process? What went behind it? What was the catalyst? How did you spend your time? How did you start to grow it? Really wanted to get into the nitty-gritty of how they got their start and how they're able to grow their business when they were young. So that was what the book was premised on. So again, one of the really funny stories in the book, and again, I'm not going to do my top 3 takeaways on this because it's more of a storybook, but I wanted to give you some background and context about what the book is about. And I want to give you 3 big takeaways for me, what the book kind of represented and the things that I took away from it. But again, I mentioned that he didn't have any money. So one of the coolest stories in the book was he figured out how to rig The Price is Right and went on The Price is Right and won a showcase in order to get money, to get the stuff, to be able to win the cash prize and the stuff that he could sell, then to be able to fund his book project. So he's going to have to travel and need equipment and all that type of stuff for the interviewing. So the people that he set out to interview, I would say that probably the 3 that come to mind for me were Tim Ferriss. Was early on in the book. He really wanted to get a hold of Tim Ferriss because he wrote the 4-Hour Workweek, and how did he get a hold of people in order to write that book? And so he thought he could have learn a lot from Tim, which he eventually did get a hold of him after emailing him like 300 times, which is a pretty funny story inside of the book. He definitely wanted to go after Warren Buffett and was blacklisted from his office. And he also wanted to meet Bill Gates. And so through this process of trying to network and meet people and whatnot, he ends up going and getting involved at a party and ended up meeting Steven Spielberg and networking there. Through osmosis, he ended up meeting this guy who was a little bit older than him. His name was Elliot Bisnow. Elliot Bisnow. And he is the guy that was the CEO of the Summit Series, where he'd get all these big think heads to come. I believe it's to Park City, somewhere in the snow, and they would have like a summit, and everybody would be in this big house, and he'd take them all skiing, and they would just be like hanging out with really famous people and really smart people and really wealthy people. And it was a chance for the ultra elite to kind of get together in this little club. It was like invite only. And so Alex gets linked up with this guy Elliot, and Elliot's 25, running the series, super well networked, flying all over the world, making millions of dollars. And so he starts to take Alex underneath his wing. And that was one of the first lessons for me, was the book really talks a lot about mentorship and how important it is to put yourself in the room with the people that you're trying to become, or the people that may be able to put you in the room with the people like you're trying to become, or you're trying to seek knowledge from, you're trying to seek their wisdom or guidance. And so mentorship is a common theme. He ends up getting mentored by Larry King, of all people. End up chasing him down in a grocery store. Got to have another crazy story, and actually befriends Larry King, gets a lot of insight and knowledge from him. They also became a mentor to him. So he does a really great job in this book of kind of finding people that he can use and leverage relationships. And that comes to the second biggest takeaway, was how to network. And he networks extremely well. I mean, some of the other people that he interviewed in their interviews and the stories are all in the book were Sugar Ray, Lady Gaga, Steve Wozniak, Maya Angelou. I told you, ends up meeting Bill Gates. Didn't get a chance to meet Warren Buffett, but did sneak into their Berkshire Hathaway convention that they host every year, and was able to figure out and manipulate how to get on and be able to ask a question, which he did, which was pretty funny because the office had shut him down. So he learns first how to find great mentors that help put him in rooms and situations. Like he became friends with a guy who, a friend of a friend, put him in touch with the president of, I believe, Asia for Microsoft, or a certain huge component of Microsoft. So the guy was like third or fourth in line at Microsoft, right? So he obviously knew Bill Gates. That was his connection. So he put him in touch with Bill Gates' chief of staff. And then he ended up talking to him. And anyway, so he, to the point where he eventually got to interview Bill Gates, right? But the point was, he never stopped. He kept looking for different angles. And one of the books that was referenced that I had also read was by Jerry Warrenthorpe, who was a guy that was a legend in the Hollywood space he like managed Elvis and Frank Sinatra, right? So he ends up reading this book by Jerry, who was very influential, talking about how to network, and you don't have to be somebody in order to get to know somebody that is somebody and then eventually be somebody, right? I mean, Jerry ended up being worth hundreds of millions of dollars and just was a kid, I think just came from the Bronx or Brooklyn. But Alex did a great job of networking with really powerful people and then using that to his advantage. He ended up dropping out of school to be able to write this whole book from USC, which his parents were not happy about. But he was committed to completing the book. He actually even turned down a full-time position with Elliot, who was one of his first mentors that was introducing to a lot of wealthy people and high up people in order to write the book. So he was very committed. So that was just something to take away as well. But one of the other lessons, they said, finding mentors, networking, how powerful that was. And the last thing would be seeing the mission through. Like whether it was dropping out of college, leaving behind six-figure jobs, making your parents upset, Alex didn't care. He was committed to the cause at all costs. And I've talked a lot about this actually on one of the last books that I reviewed, that you have to have the mentality of burning the ships, burning the boats. I talked about this in the book I reviewed by Dan Crenshaw, is that there's this no plan B mentality. And really, Alex went in with a no plan B. It was like, I don't know how I'm going to get published. I don't know how I'm going to fund it, but I'm going to fucking figure it out. If that means I have to manipulate the prices right on how to get on there and how to win it, then that's what I'm going to do. If that means I've got to stalk Tim Ferriss, I've got to chase down, Larry King in a grocery store, the stuff that he did was absolutely crazy. I mean, the fact that he got to speak to Maya Angelou speaks volumes to what he was able to accomplish, to get to interview somebody that's been that impactful and that influential. I mean, definitely one of the top 10 probably most impactful people, her and Bill Gates, in the last 100 years. So the book really is about how he navigated and met these people and the things that he learned and what he was able to accomplish. So I thoroughly enjoyed the book. It was one that I actually read it last year. So it's one of the books I enjoyed the most in 2020 was The Third Door, because it just taught a lot about perseverance and how to put yourself in the right situation, and just that you never take no for an answer. Like the kid just never took no for an answer. And because he did that, he got inside of the rooms, he got to interview the most powerful people in the world, and got to write a book, and now he's a multimillionaire because of this experience. He goes on, he's a guest speaker, he speaks at conferences and companies all over the world, and he's on a real mission to help people change, and he wants to deliver the message of the book's subtitle, The Wild Quest to Uncover How the World's Most Successful People Launch Their Careers. So check it out. So if you're someone who's a little bit confused about where you're at with your career, you're looking for good advice, you're looking for a good heartfelt story, it's a great book for you to read. It's a really quick read. It's still a couple hundred pages, but Alex is a great story. Yeah, it's about 286 pages. But Alex is a great storyteller. For the first book he ever read, he crushed it. Again, he was the youngest person to ever get signed by Penguin Publishing and their 80-year history. So another big feat with writing the book. So check it out, The Third Door. I'll post a link to the book in my show notes. It's definitely one if you're someone who likes to read autobiographies, in a very storytelling format. You're going to love it. So there's so many tangible takeaways and also really cool stories about all the people that I referenced in there as well. So link will be in the show notes if you guys want to buy the book. If you haven't, please subscribe to the podcast and the YouTube channel. Would really mean a lot to me. And please share with people. If you know any other book lovers out there, share the podcast with them. Would be wonderful. Would really appreciate it. And thanks so much for listening.